Hello, good afternoon. Cool. Thanks so much to Carrie and Karen and Joe and Troy for organizing, and thanks to the weather for showing up and allowing us to enjoy this beautiful backdrop. So today I'd like to share with you a bit of the work that I've been inspired by folks who have dedicated their lives to stewardship and to the world of housing. And I hope you'll walk away feeling a sense of that this is happening, this is something we can be a part of. Um, and having a sense of that these fields are having a sense of trust in where these fields are heading. I'd like to open up calling in just a sense of context that the world we live in, the United States, is a land of experimentation. Some 100 years ago, folks came together and declared an impossible vision. I'm more familiar with the French philosopher saying, be reasonable, demand the impossible. So America has a bit of calling in the impossible from the get-go and saying, we'll figure the rest out. So being the land of experimentation, we used a couple tools to get where we are today. And the tools at our disposal were democracy, new innovative legal system, and new innovative financial systems. And these systems have not played out. They're still evolving. And where I have the most intersection with them is the worlds of housing and the worlds of agriculture. So what do I mean by stewardship, and what do I mean by housing? By stewardship, we must recognize we have hundreds of millions of acres of forest under conservation in this country through our national park systems. We also have tens of millions of acres of conservation that are conserving agriculture across the country. So by stewardship, I'm thinking about what are these systems we've developed to give a sense of place to the forest, give a sense of place to our food systems, through our ecologists, through our park rangers, through the financial agents that probably could be working at a bank somewhere, but are rather dedicating their lives to thinking about, wow, how do we apply our financial systems to maintaining these ecological systems, these food systems. And by housing, I'm thinking of the builders, I'm thinking of some of us who may be homeowners, I'm thinking of mortgage lenders, thinking of architects, thinking of regulators in the county and zoning, and saying like, none of these folks have to work with each other. It's not a given that they're working with each other, but for whatever reason, they've chosen to work with each other in these fields that aren't incredibly close, but are coming together. And so while it may seem that the folks working to preserve the forest and doing stewardship are as far away as can be from the folks who have come together in the housing industry in some level, it's really just it's just a small shift. These skill sets are already occurring, and in places these separate skill sets are already talking to each other. So that's what I'm sharing with you today. And by no means are these industries of housing and stewardship. These lists are not exhaustive. I'm sure you could add a couple to them yourself. But you may have a sense of, why is this young person talking about zoning officials and mortgage lending? Well, it comes from two sources of inspiration. One is a question that occurred to me from a brief visit to Sevilla, Spain, and the other is the inspiration of my grandmother. While studying abroad in Barcelona, our group traveled to Sevilla, Spain to witness Semana Santa there, which is the Easter week. And as transformative and mind-blowing and referencing to biblical traditions that I did not know existed as seeing Semana Santa was, it was spending a couple of quiet hours walking through the old Arab city that's in the center of Sevilla that has left me with this profound question. The Arab city was constructed between 1000 and 1500 AD, and it's unlike most places you've ever seen if you've only lived in the Americas. The streets are entirely composed for pedestrians, and it just overwhelms you with a sense of beauty, a sense of mystery, and a sense of accessibility. That you can get where you need to go, and it will provide you a journey on the way to get there. And this just left me with this question of, how did this place come to be? Why have I never seen a place like this before? Now, how many of you grew up or have lived in a place that was one of the fastest growing places in the country, such as Sacramento, Atlanta, LA, Austin, Texas, Raleigh, Charlotte? In these places, you can see an example of what our intention is and how we inhabit the landscape. William McDonough, the one of the most brilliant architectural minds of our time, says design is a product of our intention. When we look at what we have produced through design, we have a reflection of what our intentions are. And when we look at these fast-growing cities, we can say, we've produced ownership, we've produced home ownership, we have produced access to clean air, we have produced access to mobility systems. We can also say, well, what intentions do we still have yearning for? And I'll come back to this point. My second source of inspiration for this exchange with you today is my grandmother, Nan. She's one of the best entertainers I know. She's going to turn 82 in January. She lived for 30 years in Houston and moved back to the town that her grandfather founded that has around 100 people in it, called Walberg, Texas. And whatever beverage of your choice you prefer, she will keep it on stock for you in one of her 2 refrigerators. And she always has a keg of beer at her house that's refrigerated for so she can entertain who's ever able to stop by. And Nan has been able to move back to her hometown and not need to move to a retirement home, partially because my uncle lives just down the street from her, and he comes and checks on her, and whatever she needs, he's there to provide for her, apart from his work. But nonetheless, I'm not fooled into thinking that the lifestyle that she has now is something that is not in some way special. It's not in some way a little bit unique in the country. That there are many folks of her age that don't have access to her son that lives down the road, or to my parents who live 20 minutes away and can visit her. So more often than the times I visit her, I think, how can she continue to live out her life where she can love to entertain, love to decorate, celebrate the seasons, and have a place for her grandson to visit that is just this cozy, warm, homely place, much like some of the homes that I saw when I was living abroad in Spain. And in doing so, also thinking, how can I create a place that is not only restorative and healthy for Nan, but also restorative and healthy for myself and for the children I'd like to bring into the world? Coming back to this idea of intention, the sense of stewardship and housing as stewardship, I bring up stewardship because stewardship is part of my intention. It's part of my experience in the world, is that I would like to live in a place not unlike Highland Lake, that you are embedded in nature, you're embedded in community. You have a deep sense of the world around you and the ecology around you. So for me, stewardship is a signal of my intention. At the same time, we can take this idea of stewardship and put something else that's important to us in that place, whether it's entrepreneurship, perhaps music, perhaps art. Part of the most immediate places that these conversations of housing and other intentions are merging is in the world of arts, where organizations such as Art Place are creating low-income housing for artists that are engaging these intricately complex processes, but in doing so having transformative impacts in communities across the country, from Baltimore to Santa Cruz and many places in between, of saying, well, just because it hasn't been done doesn't mean that we can't do it. We can create a place using housing as a tool for creating a community of artists. And at this time is not like the previous years that come before us. We have a unique opportunity of why this time is special, and it's especially highlighted by the fragility of the housing system that we've seen in the last few years. And it's also highlighted by our ease of communication, and it's highlighted by the raising transportation cost, that the designs that we've seen in the last 50 years will not be the same designs that we see moving forward. So with this housing fragility, we now have the opportunity for a conversation around how do we avoid what occurred 4 years ago in 2008 as far as the housing crisis. This opens up the space to say we can apply our intentions to housing, and therefore housing is not all created equal. Therefore, one neighborhood is a place that is not a place of speculation. It's more than a commodity, it's more than a product. When you think about our neighborhoods that you may have visited, think about the place they are. You think about the depth of place And the conversation we're opening up is, how does this depth of place connect to our housing? And how can we use housing as a tool for this, creating this depth of place? So, walking away today, please consider that housing is more than a product. It deserves more than to be subsidized by our mortgage system. Housing is an opportunity to create accessibility between your neighbors. Housing, it can be an opportunity for whatever it is you want to bring into the world. For myself, housing is an opportunity for community, for engaging the people around me. So, I'd just like to leave you with this idea that housing, as something that's been recognized in the last 100 years as part of this experimentation with the United States, that's given us home ownership, that's given us fresh air and systems of mobility, we can use housing as a mechanism for what we want to bring into the world. Cool. Thank you very much.